I'm Kent Lind. Welcome to another edition of Airbrush Action instructional videos. Today we're going to be going over the second part, the two-part series that's called Kent Lind's Top 25 Designs. Now these designs are different a little bit than the first 15 that we went over in that they're a little more complicated. We've got a little more cartoony going on mixed in with our lettering. So it's going to offer you a little bit more of a challenge. Let's get going. For the first design, I'm going to start with my opaque black. A lot of these designs that I'm going to be doing here in the second part of the series are going to be a combination of a graphic look or a cartoon mixed with lettering. So a lot of it is going to be, it's very hard to get away with doing designs on t-shirts that don't have some sort of lettering. Unless you're talking about a portrait of an animal or a person, a lot of the designs we're going to be doing are going to have lettering in them. So that's kind of the format of how this is going to turn out or how it's going to be. So a lot of it's going to be, either a simple kind of a graphic with some lettering, or just a little more involved, maybe a cartoon or something like that. So give you a little quick preview here. Continue on with our lettering. And with the slash style, a lot of times what you're doing is just kind of building up different parts of lines. In other words, the line work that we've got over here, a lot of it's separated at times, and you're just trying to create a lot of movement again in that lettering style. I'm going to go back here. We're going to add some of those slashes on the B, some of those dots as well, give it a lot of movement. As you can see how those little pieces just really, give it a lot of agitation, really give it a lot of movement. Finish that up over here. Okay, now I'm going to move down into the center part of the shirt. This is where I'm going to put my little graphic element in it. And I kind of like to get my center just by moving down from the middle of it with my whole body, just so I get in a sense of where I'm going with it. What we're developing here is a pair of kind of evil eyes, okay? They're kind of peering at you through the center of the shirt. Obvious selection in terms of, a type of graphic to go with this design, to go with the lettering here. You notice too that these little creases under the eyes, what they simply are is a dagger stroke that I kind of almost connect in the middle. In other words, we dagger stroke this way to get the taper at the end, then we come back and taper it this way as well. And what that does is it creates more depth here up by the brow, which is what we want, and a thinner line towards the bottom, which gives us more of a circular or round look. And I'm going to thicken up the brow again. Go back in, put the eyes in. I'm just going to do a little bit of shading on the top here with the black. Same on this side. Then I'm going to finish the design up on the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit more black over here just to kind of get the same thickness of the brow. I just noticed that when I step back. There we go. I'm going to finish it up on the bottom with a little bit more lettering and a different style. I just love this print style, especially for a design like this. It's got a lot of bounce. You know, it's not too exact. You can see that I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but it's very effective with this type of design. You don't have to be too, you know, not a lot of precision here. You're trying to get that idea across of, you know, chaos and things like that. I'm going to go back in, kind of thicken these up a little bit. Print style, too, also has a distinctive thick and thin quality. You can see, especially like in this A here, I had an upstroke that's very thin, and the downstroke on the right side is very thick. So, you know, in terms of like what, according to, well, in comparison to script, it's very similar. Continue on down. Next color that I pull out is yellow. I'm going to use this to warm up the inside of the eyes. It becomes really effective when I add the next color, red, and kind of blend that down. All right, and also I kind of make the center of the eyes red as well. Let me show you how I do that. Pulled out my red. So what we've got here is that the color of the eye itself, right around the pupil, is going to be red. And then I'm going to also take the red and shade down this way. So I get like a kind of a little bit darker orange into the yellow. Come and do this side as well. And I'm also going to add a little bit of red under the eye. Okay? Because we know that evil guys don't sleep much, and they all got red eyes, right? I'm going to grab my violet now. This is where this design really comes together, because I'm using the violet not only to enhance the colors that I've already got, but I'm using it also to form more shapes, or to form more like the brow lines and things like that. This really thickens everything up, okay? So that's what I'm going to do here. Come down and rework that a little bit, and I'm extending these creases as well, okay? I'm going to come back in and give a real heavy brow shadow here on the bottom, okay? A little more brow work on the top, and then I'm going to extend these wrinkles up this way too. Kind of give it that really worn look, a really nasty look here. Alright, move across to the other eye here. Sending that down. Continuing the shading underneath the eye and on the brow. There we are. You can see how that purple just really adds a lot of depth, a lot of dimension to that part of our design. I'm also going to use the violet to come in and do a real quick drop on the lettering. And some of the, you don't have to put a drop on every one of those little, you know, dots and things like that, just so you get a hint of it in there. That's fine. There we are. The last step involves taking our opaque white, and we really need to punch out those glossy areas in the eyes with our white. So you've got to be extremely sensitive to the fact that you need these to be very crisp. Okay? Put those on the same side. Put a little glisten there around the outside of that color area, the pupil. And I'm also going to add just a few touches down here on the bottom. Little highlights, little, you know, whatever, tear ducts here on the inside. Same thing on this side. Highlights here on the bottom. Just really make sure they're vibrant. I mean, this is the, you know, one design that really becomes evident. And I'm going to also put a couple hot spots here in the creases. With the additional graphic, this design really costs about $25. I do sell quite a few of these. I don't know if it's just the attitude of the shirt, the fact that the lettering mixes so well with the eyes that we've got in the middle, or just that we've got a lot of bad boys running around. I don't know. For whatever reason, this design just moves right off the shelf. Okay, for the next design, I've got my opaque black, and it's going to involve the same type of process in terms of having a smaller graphic element in the middle and then some lettering around it. start out by putting in kind of a loose circle. You notice too that when I did this, I made a pass 2 or 3 times so I got the rhythm of doing the circle, and then I went in and applied my paint to it. Too many times beginners will get in there and try to laboriously go around and get their design, the beginning of this design down. It just looks very muddy and very labored. So you want to remember that when you're doing something like this, whether it's, if you're doing a quick freehand ball of any type, just make a few passes first and then go in with your paint. What I would categorize as a party design. You got to have, at least a handful of these up in your display. I don't know for whatever reason, but people tend to equate the airbrush T-shirt with a party. Maybe we just have that good a time, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe they're just always partying in their airbrush T-shirts. I don't know. We're starting off by making our pair of eyes here on the top. Move our way down here. This probably already looks familiar to some of you, doesn't it? All right, continuing with the black, I'm going to move above the design. I'm going to add the first part of my lettering. This is a script or a print style again. And, as always, I'm going to come back in and thicken this up. Print style, again, has varying degrees of thicks and thins. Just remember that when you're forming it. Alright, top part of the lettering. Now we're going to go underneath and finish out the design with the lettering. Very simple, one letter. But done 5 times in a row. I get more comments on this design. I have it prominently displayed on the corner side of one of the display on the side of my building there. Probably my most popular party design shirt. The next few stages basically involve filling in our design with color. I'm starting out with yellow here. I just love doing variations of the smiley face, I just think it's so flexible, real versatile, and easy to do. I just love that combination. And at this point, you just have to saturate the area, fill in the entire area. There we are. Using light brown now, I'm going to go in and start to flesh out my face. Again, I'm kind of giving it a light source here. I'm shading it a little heavier in the bottom left. A little bit of contour there. I'm going to finish edging it out. I'm going to go around the eyes. This is just to kind of go over the creases again and just make them, a little bit deeper in certain areas and really make it stand out a little bit more. And then we've got the shadow from the tongue here. And in I'll actually use the brown too as well to get a shadow right on the tongue. Using red, I'm going to start in the tongue area. Just kind of saturate it. Kind of fill it in. We're going to let that brown come through and be our shading. You can see in there, it's kind of like an underpainting. I'm also going to take the red, do a quick lid line, and then shade down this way. Using gray, I'm going to actually add a little drop shadow to my face here, so I emphasize that light source even more. Okay. You can see that it's thicker here on the bottom left, and that way it gives that illusion of the light source coming in this way. And I'm going to add just a little bit of highlights or a little bit of drop shadow to the lettering. Using opaque white now, I'm going to finish out the design. I'm going to do a couple crisp highlights in the eyes. Like so. And emphasize the folds a little bit more. And of course my favorite part, got to add a little drool. Just love that. Little drool lines running up here. Those of you living in Wisconsin, you know what I'm talking about. You guys are going to get tons of reaction from this design, so make sure you get it up in a prominent area of your display. I sell it for about $25. And like I said, just the whole aspect of the smiley face with the drool, you can't go wrong. For our next design, we're going to start with opaque black again. And this is a variation off of the circle design that we did last time. Again, when you're starting your circle, give yourself a few passes and lay out a boundary. Just that simple. With this one, however, I'm not going to really darken up those lines yet because I've got a few elements that I need to add here. This is an extremely popular design with mothers, let me tell you. Those of them with naughty little boys, anyway, let me tell you. I get a lot of requests from this from moms who look like they're at the end of their rope, so to speak. Alright, now I'm going to go back in and kind of tighten up the circle here, and I'm going to have to move over just a touch so I can get a nice angle on it. There we go. From this point, I'm going to move to the interior of the face now. I just love the versatility of the whole smiley face look. So many things you can do with it. And a few crease lines on the top and the bottom. Clean those up. And we're going to add our smile on the bottom. If you're talking devious, you got to have a smile. Alright, from this point I'm going to go ahead and move directly into the name. Let me just punch these out a little bit. I want to put a few more creases in here. There we go. I'm going to move down and directly into the name since I'm going to be doing that in black as well. I'm going to be using a print style again, but incorporating a lowercase as well. All the designs that I've done to this point have all had uppercase or capital letters for the name. So move right across, start here on the left. As always, going back and thickening up our letters, making them really punch out. I'm going to be using yellow now, and it's just a real simple process. What I'm going to do is kind of do a real broad wash right on the top part of the face. I know that I'm going to be using red to fill in the rest of this, but what the yellow does, just adds another dimension to it, just makes it a little more, gives it more of a three-dimensional look to it. It's not so flat. If I were to fill it just all with red, do a little shading on that, it would tend to look just a little bit too flat. So I'm going to add the yellow here first. Now moving into the red, I said we're really going to have to, with the red, generally what you do is you saturate the entire area that you didn't get with the yellow, okay? So move the entire circumference of the circle. And then what I do is I'll shade down here. And I'll come back, really hit this part heavy, moving my way up. Just a big broad stroke saturating the area. Okay? And then I'll start to use my red to shade in around the eyes and the brow like this. And I'll build in with the red towards my eyes like this. And you'll see that when I'm done, for the most part it'll look red. I mean, you know, it'll have that flavor of an all red look, but you'll notice that it'll have just a little bit more of an orangish tint to it with the yellow in there. Go back here and re-hit some of those areas. But you can see how that yellow just adds a little bit to it. It's not so flat. It's got a little bit more bounce to it. With violet now, I'm going to further enhance that idea of, you know, giving it more depth and a more three-dimensional look by adding some drop shadows to it. Shadowing in the lower part of the face. Alright, kind of building up this way. Got some creases around the mouth. So, a little bit in the lips here. I'm going to re-emphasize the eyes with it. A little darker feel. Swing around to this side of the horn. There we go. I'm also going to use the violet to edge my design as well. This is kind of like the slash approach in that whichever direction the line is that I'm going, I just continue it out that way. It's not a solid line. You know, add some of the little dots to it. We'll continue on and do the entire edging. There we are. Again, we're going to add some motion lines here. There we are. Same thing on the bottom. I'm just basically making a semicircle, kind of creating some movement, getting into the letters a little bit, drawing you in there. Let me add a little bit of a drop to this. Okay, we've got our opaque white now, and it's just a matter of giving it the highlights, you know, in the eyes and in the horn and things like that to pick out those areas specifically. Some of these creases, I'm hitting those a little bit. There we are. I'm going to go up here to the horn and just add these little dots in there like that. It just gives that illusion of more of the creases in the top of the forehead there. There we are. Same thing on this side. Building it up a little bit as we go. Come back in, hit those a little bit harder. This is a great design to add to give you that extra attitude in your shop. I sell it for about $25 and it is a great seller. Got to add it to it. For this next design, we're going to keep going with that kind of attitude feel. We've got our opaque black here. And we're going to lay out our design. I just put this one into my display probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought maybe it would have a year or two shelf life, but this is a design that just keeps on giving. Starting to get the formation here of a mushroom, a shroom design. And what I've done here is I've gone ahead and I've done a lot of the line work on the inside. Well, not a lot, but some of it. And then I've gone around the edge with a nice, thick, heavy line work. I just, with the lettering, I do that as well. I just think that's a great great way to make it more of have a graphic look, a real clean, crisp, solid look. That's, very visible from a distance. Again, we've got dagger strokes that run up into the eye so we don't get too heavy-handed. Same around here. Little nose here, little shading on the bottom. And then we add our smile. I have used a stencil or cut a stencil out for this one, but I found that doing it over the last couple of years that I actually get it done much quicker without the use of a stencil, and it's just as clean. Now I'm going to saturate the entire upper part of the shroom with fluorescent yellow. Real simple process. Just a big fill, so as long as you edge it properly and keep within, this painting area, you just let it fly, you'll do fine. You still see, though, that as I'm filling it in, I'm actually still following the contour of the mushroom. It just makes it easier to fill in. It's more obvious if you make some kind of mistake or something like that, so just keep that in mind as you're doing your fill. There we are. Now I've got aqua. I'm going to go in, do a little bit of a shading technique up here, just to give it a little more depth. And you can see that as I add it, it really turns more of a lime green or fluorescent green, but it's got more power to it than that color would. So that's why I do a two-step approach like this. I'm also going to use this color to add a little dimension in here in terms of just some design, something to keep it a little more visually interesting. The thing about doing these swirls that a lot of people don't see is that there's actually this element, if you look at this one, where I'm going from thick to thin. Okay, you can see these strokes as they come up, they're thicker on the bottom and they're thinner on the top. It's a very subtle technique, but it's very effective. If I didn't use that particular way of doing it, you'd be able to tell immediately, and it just generally really flattens it out. All right, and I'm also going to take the aqua down into the main part of the body here. Shading around the eyes, coloring in around the eyes. Again, just very easy fill, saturate the area. Okay, we got the phthalo blue now. I'm actually just going to shade in around this, add a little bit of a light source to it, okay? In other words, I'm going to come heavy down here to give it kind of a shelf there. I'm going to move around and add a little more dimension to the wrinkles around the eyes. A little kick in the middle. Also, I'm going to deepen up the bottom part just a touch. Shading up into it, around the mouth. I've got fluorescent pink now. So we really take and warm this design up quite a bit, because at this point we've got a lot of green blue. We've got some yellow in there, but it looks more green with all that aqua over it. And the pink just really offsets it nicely. It really adds a nice vibrancy to it. Okay, add that in there. Using violet now, I'm going to get just a little more depth here underneath this opening, underneath this part here, and also a little more in the bottom part of the main body. Then I want to kind of put a little halo effect around the entire design. Just kind of ties everything together. I just like that look. It's very important for beginners, for my rookies. It makes them feel a little more comfortable, a little more at ease until they get to the point where they're very proficient with this. I'm also going to use the violet too to add the lettering on the bottom. Told you this was another attitude shirt, so nothing says attitude like bite me. I'm going back and thicken these up just a touch. And just add a quick drop to these as well. You can see that we finished up our highlighting here. We've got nice crisp ones going on in the lettering. I also wanted to bring out the eyes a little bit here in the center part. Just a quick spot in each eye adds a little glisten to it. I also put a little bit of an edge around the mushroom itself, which travels the entire distance around the mushroom. I think it picks it out a little bit more and adds a little bit more distinction between the foreground and the background. The mushroom design sells for $25. Like I said, the staying power of this design has just been incredible. I thought it would be a real trendy kind of in and out design, but it's just staying and it shows no signs of slowing down. For the next design, we're going to kind of continue that trend, kind of the peace, love, and harmony kind of idea. We're starting with our opaque black, and we're going to start in the upper left corner and move our way down the shirt with our series of elements. So we'll start up here first. Again, you could use a stencil for this. And as a matter of fact, I did have a series of stencils that I cut for this. However, I find that it just turns out a little bit more impromptu if I do it this way. It's not so labored. It's got a little more of a, different flair to it. Give that one a nice border. We're going to move down here now. And we're going to also pick up the center area, outline in the center area. So I've got going on here is a little peace, love, and happiness. Okay, I picked up my fluorescent green now. I'm going to use this to fill in the piece. This symbol here. Here we are. I'm going to put an edge around these, around the outside of the green, between the green and the black, so I'm not actually butting up exactly to the black. So that's not that important. There we go. We've got that saturated. Now with red, I'm going to come in, fill in the majority of this heart. There's a little room in the center there to add my fluorescent pink. There we are. Just like to leave that little bit there, because when I come back with the fluorescent pink, it really has a tendency to, pump that out a little bit more round, a little bit more meaty. There we go. Got yellow now, and again, I'm just going to saturate this area, inside of my face here. There we are. Piece of cake. Now with a light brown, I'm just going to tone this up a bit, kind of flesh it out, give it a little more weight. Nothing too drastic, nothing too major. There we are. With violet, I'm going to just add a little more depth to the heart. Very similar to the heart designs that we do. Give it a little more kick. A little more depth. Now the phthalo blue, this one's got a kind of a double function. I'm going to use the phthalo blue as a background color. Okay, so I'll start on the inside of the peace sign here. I'm going to work my way around. Alright, and I'm also going to use it to shade in the inside of the peace sign too. So I get a nice thickness there and a little bit of edging around the lines on the inside. There we go. And I'm going to continue down now with the blue, with the phthalo blue, and just kind of edge the rest of these. Yeah. Getting a little bit of a skip in there, nothing too bad. I'm also going to use the phthalo blue now to add a lot of action around this. So all I'm going to do is start in the upper left corner and kind of scribble my way down. Hardest thing about this is just maintaining that control so you don't go inside of these particular design elements. And it's just a very simple kind of a, like I said, we're just kind of scribbling around it. I'm going to punch out some of these areas a little bit thicker. There we are. And I'm going to scribble down the other side. And I'm going to come back up on top here. Like I said, I'm just going to kind of, as needed, punch up a few areas. Wherever you feel is a little bit, in need of more color. There we are. Using black now, I'm going to put the name in. I'm going to use this print style. Again, you can see the real variation between thicks and thins in the lettering. Okay, with the violet now, I'm going to add a little bit of a drop on the lower left side of these graphic elements in the middle, just to get it punched out just a little more, right around the peace sign, and then bottom left around the heart, and the same thing around happiness. There we are. Also going to add just a little bit of a drop shadow to the name. There we go, ready to be highlighted. You can see that we finished out by adding the highlights to our piece here. I added some circular highlights on the top and bottom of the peace sign. A little bit of edging in there. I also pushed out the center parts of the heart and just added a few little highlights in the eyes of the smiley face. The little highlights in the name are consistent with what we've been doing, so it just picks it out just a little bit more. I charged $25 for this design as well. A very good seller, especially among younger girls. They just love this idea of peace, love, and happiness, and it just moves very well with them. For this next design, we're really going to focus on one of the most popular types of designs I've got up in the shop. That's a sports-related design. I've got my opaque black here, and I'm going to get started with the name first, and then around that I'm going to build my sports theme. Okay? I'm going to start with the black. At this point, I'm going to re-emphasize these outside lines again. Really give it that extra pop there. Now I want to focus the design, the sports aspect design, around the name design itself. I'm going to be using basketballs. What I want to do is I'm just going to put a series of balls coming out around the name. And then for more action, to create a little more vibrancy and movement, I'm going to have them flying out from the center of the name. I like to do all this black line work first, just to get it out of the way, so I've got an exact area of where I need to lay down the rest of my colors. This could be any kind of sport that you put up. I just chose basketball. It's probably right up there. Right now, from where I'm at, soccer and basketball are probably the two biggest in terms of the type of designs that I do. Or you could do a combination. This could be a basketball, soccer ball. You could put a football up there, a baseball, bowling ball, whatever you feel, or whatever the person wants to order. You just got to make sure that you display all of those sports prominently. Some people just won't get the idea that, okay, we've got this sport, but he doesn't have soccer up. All right, so we can't do a soccer ball. So I try to get a different look using different colors with each sport, but I try to incorporate at least one design of what I consider the popular sports in my area. Just adding the lines here quick to the balls. You can see now that with the black, this creates a lot of motion. There's a lot of stuff going on here. And then when you add the color, it just pops out that much more. Okay, I picked up my Caribbean blue now. And I just start by filling in the name. Putting a little fill color inside the name. Nice and easy. Kind of blending down as you go. And carry the color almost down to the bottom. Remember that these are basically when I'm shading down, these are actually fat, soft dagger strokes that I'm using. Okay, I'm not scribbling, I'm not having barbells at the end of my lines. As I reach the bottom of the stroke here, I'm pulling forward on my trigger, pushing forward on my trigger, and it's creating that nice soft edge. It's a nice soft fat dagger stroke. Starting with the violet now, I'm going to come from the bottom part of the letters and shade into the Caribbean blue. Very simple. Again, using soft dagger strokes. I'm also going to add just a little bit of a real light border around here, a little bit of an edging to it. Now I'm going to come in with yellow, and I'm going to start doing the filling on the basketballs. Most people, as soon as I start doing this, will say, "Hey, basketballs aren't yellow." Yeah, I know. However, I happen to like the look where, first like we did in the devil head, you actually take the yellow to give it more depth, and then I'll come back in with the red and add that in to create my orange. I just like that orange better. It's a little bit dirtier orange. It's not quite as, it's not like a fluorescent orange. I think that's a little bit too much for the basketballs. This isn't, it just doesn't look, to me, this doesn't look right that way. Coming in with the yellow. And as I said, now we're going to be coming back with the red. So give yourself a nice edge with it, and just shade up. See that it's it's a darker orange. It's not the fluorescent orange. It's got a little bit grittier quality to it. I just think that works well with the look that we're trying to achieve. There we go. We'll work our way down here. There we are. Give myself a little bit of a push up here. Now I am going to pick up the fluorescent orange and I'm going to use it to edge the design. Going around the entire outside edge, including the spaces on the inside here. There we are. Great complementary color to what we've got going on the inside. Orange just adds a lot of variance to that. And I'm also going to use it to go around the basketballs, just to enhance that motion coming in this way. There we are. I'm going to take my violet again and just add a little more depth to the ball. Alright, it works very well with that red and yellow combination. There we go. This really adds a lot to it. Gives it a lot of weight. You can see that we finished our highlighting now. I just want to point out a couple of things that you've got to be consistent with your light source as well with the basketball. You notice that I put a top right light source or a highlight, a hot spot up here, and then just added a little bit of edging on the bottom. Continued on with every basketball to keep a consistent look. The lettering, same type of look. We've got a nice hard highlight here on the top and a little bit of edging on the bottom. Makes for a great looking design. You've got to have these designs or these type of designs up in your shop. The sports related designs sell like hotcakes. Again, this design could have anything ranging from soccer balls, bowling balls, tennis balls, footballs, whatever you want, a combination of all the above, different types of colors, extremely versatile design, really good seller. This design will sell for about 20 bucks. For this next design, we're going to focus on a similar look in that it's going to have the name as the majority of the design with a little design element to really set it apart from the other ones. Starting off here with opaque black, and this time I'm actually going to start with the character itself. We're going to start in the upper left corner. What I'm forming here is actually going to be a little teddy bear, the little head of a teddy bear, peering over the corner of the lettering. All right? So we start here by getting the shape of our teddy bear, a little outline. You can see that I'm doing a real jagged kind of approach. I just like that look because bears are furry, you know, in general. They've got a little bit of hair and fur and stuff sticking out, so I'm not too tight with that in terms of keeping it real polished or smooth. We go with the, you know, more of a jagged look to keep it more in tune with, you know, how bears are, a little furry. So we'll move down this way. We've got the hands here, and they're actually going to be grabbing onto the name itself. I'm going to re-emphasize those a little bit. Okay, there you go. Now we move into the first letter of the name we've got. And this is where the majority of, obviously, the design space is going to be taken up here. All right, you've got this. You can see that it takes up basically half of the entire front part of the shirt. The half part of our shirt is here. All right, and so we've got the letter down in the cartoon, and we've already taken up half of the shirt. Now, luckily, I know that the rest of the name is going to be a print style. Okay, it's not going to be in this big block style, but rather a print style. So we're doing all right on space. All right, clean that edge up just a touch. Again, bordering the name, a nice thick application. Alright, now we go in for the rest of the name. Nice and bold, really gestural kind of a look. Here we are. Again, fattening up our letters as we go. I've got fluorescent pink. I'm going to start up here in the bear first. Little pink ears, the inside of his ears. I'm also going to give him a little pink nose as well, just to kind of kick that out a little bit. A little bit of a wash in the cheeks with the pink. Alright, and from there we're going to move into the lettering itself, into the M. Again, it's a real saturation of this area with the color. I like to work from a light to dark as far as the color application. Makes it a little bit more flexible for me, a little bit easier to apply. And we're also going to move into the body of the name too. Lots of pink in this design. So we're going to do a nice splash. This is one of the few designs in this phase will actually lay down the lettering first and then go back with a splash over it. It just makes more sense. You don't lose that much of the intensity of the lettering, in terms of having the pink over it. And it's just a big pain in the butt to do the splash first and then have to pick up your black again. There we go, getting a nice fill. Pulled out my fluorescent violet now, and I'm going to do a little bit of a edge to it and then shade up from the bottom. This is going to be a bottom heavy look. I've got the heaviest part on the bottom in terms of color. There we are. Edge it the entire distance around, shading up as we go. I'm also going to put a little bit of a shading around the paws here to give a little more of effect that he's grabbing it. And I'm going to go in and add a little bit of color with this and kind of blend it in on the top and the bottom with the pink. I also want to take this color and add to the entire outside of my bear as well. And the letter. Here we are. Alright, with the violet, add just a touch of depth on the bottom here of the M. And I'm going to go in and do a little bit of a fade up, and then a little bit of a splash of strokes on the bottom here. I'm also going to do some strokes on the top as well. A nice gradual fade here first, and then in with the strokes. There we are. And a little drop shadow. And this design almost requires us to do at least one or two starbursts. This is a real little girl design. They just love this look, the teddy bear with their name on it, and they love the starburst. And it fits very well with the design. It's just a nice added touch to it. And we'll move down here and we'll put one grouping down here as well. At this point I'm going to take my light brown and I'm going to flesh out the bear. Okay? And give him some depth with this. I don't like just going in and doing a flat, a flat brown in here. I think leaving little areas of white like that or areas of the shirt, just add to it, give it a little more depth. And if you want to do a little bit of a wash there to make it a real light brown, you can go ahead and do that. Got the hands done. Now we're going to move up into the face. Nice round cheeks. A little bit of a smile line coming down. Cheeks on the other side. A little bit of a shadow around the entire area of the nose and the eyes. This kind of recesses those a little bit. In effect, what I'm doing is edging my bear. You know, I'm going around where the lines are, and then I'm kind of going in with a wash. You can see me back up here and fill in the areas. I'll start here with my opaque white. I'm going to start to do a little highlighting in there. I like to put a little shine on the nose like this. I just think it adds a little cuteness to it. And in the cheeks, and that's pretty much it for the bear. A little bit of highlights there, really works well. We'll move down into the main part of the lettering. Okay, got the M here. All I'm doing is edging the bottom part, giving a little bit of a kick, and also the top part, just in the corners there a bit. I'm going to move into the print style of the letters. And give those a nice spot as well. Keeping in mind, again, very vibrant. This design has been a great seller for me year after year. I've had it on display for about 6 or 7 years now, and it just keeps on selling great. There's a lot of elements of this design that make it very popular. It really appeals to my customers. We've got the aspect of the big, cuddly teddy bear. The different types of lettering here. We've got a nice big block M followed by a really nice innocent kind of print there. Lots of stuff going on, but it works very well together. Gels very well together. Sells for about $25 and will continue to sell. For the next design, I picked up my violet. I'm going to start here on the shirt. This has been a very popular design for me over the years as well. It's kind of in tune with the dragon that I've got up on display. Don't sell quite as many of those, but it's kind of in the same genre, kind of a fantasy looking thing. What I'm starting out here is laying out the foundation for unicorn. Using a lot of nice soft dagger strokes here. And I prefer to do this design with a color instead of outlining it in black because it just gives it a lot more of a mythical feel, a lot softer look. Not quite as drastic. Got the eye there. Got a profile eye going on. Moving down here. Horses you're going to find are a difficult thing to do. I tend to stay away from doing an entire body of a horse, or in this case a unicorn, which basically the same thing. Very time consuming. If you can stay away from that, in terms of someone comes up and says, listen, I would like this on a shirt. I always recommend just a profile or just a bust of that animal. This seems to work out much better. Right now I'm just kind of working in a shading. I'm fleshing it out a little bit more, using a lot of soft strokes. Just coming around. You can see again that I've left that space between the hard line here and the start of the shading here. This allows me, if I need to add a secondary light source again, or this makes for a cleaner looking design instead of butting up all the way to the edge of the line with the shading. There you go. I'm going to continue this shading down here by the horse. I like to work in specific areas and kind of move around before doing the complete outline so I can get a little bit more value right away. All right, we're going to move up here and start the hair. This effect with the horn is really kind of a nice looking thing. It's kind of got a like a spiral look to it, like it's going up and getting smaller as it goes. got to have a little variety in there too. Something that, you know, a horn or something that just comes straight out without any texture or contour, just tends to be real boring to look at. It kind of kills the design and the movement of it. Do some bottom shading here. Getting some weight. Again, we've got a light source coming in at this direction. Just kind of laying out where I need to go. I got to stress to you too that, you know, as a beginner, you're probably going to want to lay this out, you know, either as a drawing or possibly with a stencil just to give yourself an outline. I've done this design so many times I don't really need to do that. In fact, I'm much quicker at laying it out without having to use a drawing or a stencil. I've got the mane going to come down here. Nice flowing line down. Then I've got to thicken up the hair here. When you're talking about hair, just in general, you've got to remember that it's, you know, it's a lot of individual strands, it's true, but you got to think of it more as a shape than individual strands. You've got to look at it in terms of the weight and where the light is hitting. So you'll notice that when I'm doing this, a lot of what I'm doing, I'm going to do a kind of intermittently mix in some strands of hair, but then like I'm doing now, I'm just kind of blocking in a light source, you know, nice soft touch, trying to keep the hair as flowing as I can. So what I'll do is I'll kind of block in, like you see, some light and dark areas, and then I'll kind of connect them with some strands. Okay? It's kind of what we're shooting for. That's what you want. Kind of a few hairs going into the face there. Again, blocking out the areas. And then connecting them. So you can see now I'm starting to get a real sense of light and dark in my hair, starting to give it more weight. Then I also want to come in on the edges and do some detail work on the edges just to give it, you know, that real wispy look, the movement that we're looking for. I like this look on the bottom here. It kind of frames the horse. If you bring the hair around this way and follow it through all the way to the end, you'll have this nice framed look of your design, of your unicorn. Building up some more value. I'm going to put a few more details in here as far as the musculature. I'm not a horse expert, you know, but I get pretty good results with this. I've never had anybody complain. As a matter of fact, I get a lot of people, I'll show this design to them and they'll say, listen, can you just make it all brown? You know, I'll put a nice little white spot in there. That's pretty much what my horse looks like. And you'd be surprised, for a lot of people, this is almost a portrait, you know. To me, it's a cartoon. To me, we're doing a unicorn. But it's very effective in both, you know, uses. I'll finish this out, a little more detail on the hair here. More up here. Next, I picked up my Caribbean blue, and I'm going to make a distinction between the mane or the hair part and the face. So what I'm going to do is put a little wash in here in the hair with this Caribbean blue. Then I'll come back and I'll add a different wash in this area in terms of the face, so that'll help to distinguish the two. Because at this point it's just a monochromatic design. In other words, we've only used one color. So we want to make a little bit more of a distinction here. Now with the fluorescent violet, I'm going to use that same approach. Put a wash in the actual skin and face, down in the neck, areas like that. I'm also going to move up into the horn and do that, and up here in the ear. So you can see now that there's a big distinction between this area and the hair. And we needed that just to punch it out, pull it out a little bit more. And at this point, because I know I'm going to have a name up here now, you were probably looking at this and saying, well, this really seems offset to the right side. And it is. Here's the center. Okay, we've got the center here. Most of the horse and the design is on this side. But knowing that I'm going to have a name over here, I started it in that position so I could leave room for that. So I'm going to take my fluorescent violet again. Still got it. I'm going to just lay down a nice color swatch here. I'm also going to use it to kind of halo my design. Just adds a little more color to it. Nothing heavy. Again, very light. Pretty far away from the surface at this point. Again, we want to keep this color swatch moving as well. We want to keep it consistent with our design, okay? Just a flat block of color wouldn't have been in tune with what we're doing with the rest of this. Okay, with the fluorescent pink, I'm going to finish out this area. Just add a nice little color swatch on the top of it and on the bottom. Get a nice fill. Okay, we've got our black now, and we're going to do the name. Again, I like to do a nice script style with this. We'll go back in and punch that out, fill it in. And we're just trying to build up the same type of value here in terms of the thickness of the letters. Here we are. And I'm also going to take the black and I'm going to punch out the pupil just a little bit. I'm going to use the black in this area, and I'm also going to go down and darken up the inside of the nose just a touch. Nothing very heavy. Here we are. Okay, we've got our phthalo blue here. Real simple. We just want to fill in the eye. This is a good tie-in between kind of bringing the hair over back into the face and having the design follow through like that. A little bit above the eye to tie that in. All right, with the violet one more time, I'm just going to add a little more weight to our color and put in our drop shadow. With our opaque white now, I'm going to go in and just punch up some areas that we need to get some highlighting in, especially here in the eye. Just give it a nice glow to it. All right, punch up some areas here. Wherever you feel like the light source will be hitting strongest, this works really well with the violet. It's not an overpowering thing. It just happens to really make it jump out. Up here in the horn, I'm going to hit a few spots a little bit heavier here because we want to give this the illusion of being a hard surface, okay? So I did a little bit of a diffused highlight coming up it, and now I'm going to actually take each one of those little crevices and give it an edge. All right, down in this area. And then now I want to also hit some of the areas in the hair that are going to have some highlights, some high points to it, little hot spots. Now you notice that I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm not going all the way back down here because this is where the light would be not present. If you've got a light source coming in here, the highlights would only be where the curve is. So as I'm working my way down the hair, I'm going to do a couple of the strands here. You notice that in a lot of the cases, the only place where I'm going to be putting some of these highlights is in the lightest spots. You know, it's just an obvious kind of a way to treat it. It's all right to drag a few, you know, in the darker areas. You might have, you know, some hair strands that are sticking up a little bit. That's all right. I'm going to edge that out just a bit. Now I'm going to jump over in the name. Just take care of a little bit of highlighting here, right in the letters. And I'm just going to enhance this swirl a little bit, add a few here and one down here. This design gives you a nice alternative look to your design base. It's real soft, lots of pinks and purples, very flowing, really feminine looking. Been a very popular seller for me for a long time. I sell it for about $25. It does very well. These last two designs are kind of tied together in that they have a similar theme. I do a grandpa's gang and a grandma's gang. I've started out with my black here, and we're going to start out with the grandpa's gang. It's kind of an easy process. Got to get situated here. I like to do these type of designs with just like cute little animals in them. And in my area, fishing is a pretty big deal up in Minnesota. So I incorporated a design. It's got a little fish with a bunch of bubbles around it. The fish, of course, being Grandpa, and the bubbles having various names in of the grandkids. This isn't any particular kind of fish, so it's whatever you can come up with your own. I mean, if you want to do a more specific looking one, I mean, I'm not too big into fishing myself, but if you want to put a bass in there, or a trout, or whatever you want to do is fine. I like to keep mine simple, nothing too specific. It allows me to spend less time on it. Just a simpler process to do. Kind of fleshing it out here with the black. Go back in and fill it in. There we go. And it's similar to some of the lettering designs. I'm going to go back in and kind of punch out this outer edge, the line work. Again, it just kind of brings the whole design together. A little more detail in here. There we are, and we'll finish up in the tail. Now at this point I'm going to go in and also work in the lettering as well. As long as I've got my black out, I like to use a print style lettering and move underneath it. I'm going to go back in and reinforce those just to make sure they're all consistent. Again, remember to have a little bit of variety in your line work. Here we are. Let's finish it up over here. Now I've picked up my phthalo blue. Let me just start to fill in my fish. Start to flesh them out here. Coloring process for this is really simple. It's kind of just about a 3 or 4 step process. We'll come in here first with the phthalo blue and start building it up. Then we'll get a color fill in there with the aqua. I like to add just a little bit of yellow down at the bottom, and then we thicken things up a bit with the violet. So very simple process. I'm going to edge this out here. And I'm going to add some contour around the eyes with a little bit, because I know I'm going to be putting some aqua in here. I'm taking my phthalo, the darker of the two, just kind of adding some contour in it. A bit in the eye. And I'm going to work in some of the areas down here as well. Some of this is shading, like underneath the fin here, and some of it is the actual, what the color of that piece is going to be, like this bottom fin in this area right in there. That's why I'm doing it this way. Alright, we keep with our phthalo blue. What I'm doing now is just adding in some, just real random, very light lines to kind of simulate the water. Okay, nothing too drastic, because I've got to put some bubbles over these as well. Those are where the kids' names will be going in. I'll blend that in down there. Alright. Now for the bubbles, I like to keep that generally a little bit higher because I've got the name down here. I've got a lot of action going on. So I'm going to fit the bubbles up in this area just a little bit higher. So do here. And we also do a little bit of shading. Just make sure you get them big enough so you can fit whatever the names are in there. We'll just do a couple of them here. Another one over here. And the fourth one here. And just to add a little variety, I'll also kind of add a little bit of a few bubbles kind of going up like that. Just gives it a little bit more visually interesting. Let me finish this out here. I noticed I didn't really have my shading, my edging done over here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm also going to put a nice wash over the top part of the letters. Now with the aqua, I'm going to go in and do more of a fill on the fish, like I said. This is a little bit further back because I'm not doing really any detail work with this. I'm just getting it in as a color, just doing a fill. I'm also going to carry that same effect in the water again. And I'm going to fill it out in the bubbles as well. And like with the phthalo blue, I'm adding just a swatch of color down here. It's a very color consistent design in terms of where the colors go. I don't really divide it up at all. All the colors go pretty much in the entire design just to keep it very consistent. Okay, now with the yellow, all I do is add a real quick shot right down here. This just gives it a little more bounce on the bottom. And it kind of separates the fish a little bit from the background. Just gives it a little more push on it. Now with the violet, I want to darken up this phthalo blue just a touch. Give it a little richer look to it. Don't go too far down this way because we've got our aqua and our yellow. I want to keep it primarily in the phthalo blue area. Just like that. Give it a nice rich feel. And also I'm going to go back in the bubbles a little bit and right on the bottom give it some more weight. Here we are. And also in the lettering again. Come here, a little bit of a wash on the top and the bottom. And I'm also going to add a drop shadow with this. Now with the black, the last step really, before I do our highlighting, is just to fill in the names in the bubbles. This is why that we did our bubbles in blue instead of an outline in black, just to make a little more of a distinction between the bubbles themselves and the lettering on the inside. With the opaque white now, we're going to add our highlights. Again, we want to make sure they're nice and crisp. Get some glare in the eyes. I like to give it a little edge on the bottom. Pick that out a bit. And wherever you feel that the light source is going to be hitting it, give it a nice edge on the top. Kind of separate these fins a little bit, the lines in them. Now if you'd like, sometimes I'll go in and I'll take my white and I'll kind of add that little underwater light source look on the top. I think it's very effective. Over here in the fin. I just kind of work my way around the fish, adding the highlights where I see fit. Okay, we're also going to use the highlights in our names and the bubbles. I'm going to give this, it's probably the only time I do a specific shape for a highlight. You can see that it's more of a rectangle shape. Then we'll do an underneath spot there. That really picks those out nicely. In here, I don't do any highlighting in the name, in the lettering itself. Just kind of reinforce those a little bit. I'm going to leave the Grandpa's gang alone too. I really like to focus on this to be on the fish and the bubbles, so I don't even highlight that. And it saves you a few minutes. You got to make sure that you include a design like this because you've really got to appeal to a broad range of people. So having a Grandpa's gang up like this really includes all types of ages in the family. The grandkids are going to buy this. The kids are going to buy it. I sell this one for about $25, and it does very well for me. For this last design, we picked up our opaque black again, and we're going to complete the Grandma's Gang, Grandpa's Gang series. This is going to be the Grandma's Gang. All right, we're going to design this as a teddy bear holding a big batch of balloons, and we're going to put the names in the balloons. So lay out our design first. Okay, center ourselves. I like to start off with the nose on this one, just to give myself a good center. I am offset to the right just a little bit because I know that I'm going to have more stuff going on over in this area than I am over on the right side of the shirt. And just make sure that you start low enough so you can fit those balloons up there. Get the eyes in. This is actually almost like a 3/4 shot. You can see that this side of the face has a more elongated look, and I push this side of the face in. So it creates a foreshortened view on the right side, which gives us that 3/4 view. Fill in the color. Using a lot of dagger strokes here. Fill in the eyes now. I want to create that furry look, again with the bears. So a lot of the line work that I'm going to be doing on the outside is going to have that real jagged look to it, kind of almost inconsistent, but it's going to have kind of that fur look. That's what we're going for. Come down here, you got the cheekbone here. And down, and then we'll stick on the other side of the ear. You can see too that I've shortened up that ear quite a bit again to create that illusion of a 3/4 view. Now whatever it takes for you to execute this design in terms of having to use a stencil or whatever, you've got to do what's comfortable for you. Again, for me, doing it at freehand without any type of pre-drawing or anything is the best way. I just feel, for what I do, for my style, it just comes across a lot better. Down here with the foot, you can see that I'm doing a lot of dagger strokes that don't quite meet. This really helps create the illusion of this little kind of a teddy bear being real puffy. Here's the other hand that's just going to rest behind there. Now again, I want to go through and punch up just the outer edge of this. I really like that look. I mean, I just like the fact that it gives it a really solid, it's got a really solid look to it. It's a good approach. Again, just doing the outer edges. Keep my little our jagged strokes, our little jagged dagger strokes in line. There we are. Got a few more little folds in the skin. There we are. Of course, we got to add a little bit of a belly button here. There we go. Now, in this case, I am going to continue with the black and do my balloons. We need a little harder edge than what we had in the Grandpa's game with the bubbles. And then the idea is that the strings are attached down here to his paw. In other words, he's holding onto the balloons. There we go. Round that out just a bit. And like in the Grandpa's game, I'm going to continue on and do the lettering on the bottom. In this case, I'm going to be using a script stroke instead of the print. Now we want to go back and reinforce those lines again. And over here in the gang as well. Because we have our balloons laid out already, I'm going to go in and put the names in. Okay, I've grabbed my fluorescent pink now. I'm going to just start filling in the colors. At this point, all the hard work is done. It's just a matter of filling it in. You can't be too, of course, you've got to be careful still as far as, your color fill, but all the hard work is really done. I've added a little bit of a rosiness to the cheek, a little bit of a wash, and I also want to add a little bit to the stomach as well. You'll see why in just a bit. We've got the underpads of the feet in pink. And we're also going to do a wash through the name in pink. Now, unless they specifically request colors in the balloons, I just try to fit the colors in where I think they're appropriate. In this case, I know that my daughter, Sophie, she just loves pink, so we're going to go back in and we're going to fill this upper part in with pink here. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people, you know, will expect certain girl colors and boy colors. You know, like I've mentioned in my column in airbrush action, in some of the designs in the first video and this series, you really have to be aware of boy color versus girl color. You don't want to really go in and, you know, fill in a boy's name or what you perceive as that, you know, with a pink. Or there's some people that will take offense to that. Some people are very sensitive for whatever reason. So just be aware of that as you're filling your color in. Reinforce those a little bit. All right, I've grabbed my yellow. What I'm going to simply do is do a wash through the whole bear here. And I'm doing this because I know that I've got my light brown that I want to put in as well, but I want to have it to be a little more of an ochre look, a little more of a golden brown. You know, not so. I want to take it away more from the reddish brown and really make it a golden brown. So I'm just adding a real light wash of yellow here. All right, I've got my fluorescent violet now, and I'm going to go in and work. This is my niece, Gabby. We're going to go in with a little fluorescent violet, just to keep kind of in the same family. A little bit of a pinkish look. I just really love the color selection that Createx has. It offers you a very versatile palette. You know, they've got a different variety of types of paint too. They've got the pearlescent paints, they've got the fluorescent paints, they've got the opaque paints. A lot of the transparents is what I use. Now I'm going around here just quickly and doing a halo around it. And it's been a real pleasure working with those guys as well. Vince Kennedy and his son Craig and Jim over in the warehouse. It's just been a real pleasure working with them. They're very accommodating, and you know, they really do listen. If you guys have a concern about anything, or you know, you'd really like to see a color on the market, just give them a call. I know that they advertise in Airbrush Action. I'm sure you can get their number from the staff at Airbrush Action. They just do such a wonderful job over there. I'm going to go in now with the fluorescent violet again. Just a little bit in the letters down here, a little bit of a wash. Nothing big, right on the top and bottom. Okay, I'm going to finish out our last balloon. This is my new son Cooper. It's a little Caribbean blue. We'll get that all added in there. He's only 6 weeks old right now, and let me tell you, he's a real handful. So, but I figured I better include him, or else he, you know, might try to get back at me later on. Not like he's not doing a nice job right now. There we are. Okay, I've grabbed my light brown, and this is the point in our design where we need to really flesh out the bear. All right, and again, a lot of what you're going to do is you just follow the contour of what's going on in the line work, and then just kind of fill in around it. Real simple. A little bit of a drop shadow there. But you can see now with that yellow and with the brown on top of it, it really makes for a golden kind of look. You know, it's got a little bit more vibrancy than if you just would put the light brown in there. There we are. So I'll work up in the face and I'll come back in. We get the hand here. Again, you can see I'm leaving some area in the formation here, just to give it a little more weight, a little more depth, you know, in the wrinkles, things like that. Now, I probably mentioned this, but I am using the Awadi Eclipse right now. This brush is so versatile. It's a recent kind of changeover for me. I just the durability of the brush, all the aspects of it. I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that the tip and the needle show very little wear. I'm really hard on my equipment, and I use it a lot. In other words, when I work, it's 12, 14 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, and it's a lot of designs all day long. And this brush has really withstood all the punishment that I've handed out to it. So you got nothing but high marks for the Eclipse. Of course, coming from Iwata, they're just, all of the products that they put out are just top of the line as far as I'm concerned. I use their Micron for some work when I get at home, the custom Micron. Excellent brush. You're not going to be disappointed if you decide to go this route. At this point, it's just a matter of doing little bits of fill work. In other words, we've got little color areas that we need to take care of. We're talking specifically about the tongue there that I've done in red, and I'm going to pick up my phthalo blue, and we'll do some work in the eyes as well. Of course, you can make, whatever color you'd like for the eyes, or, whatever, green eyes, brown eyes, it doesn't matter. I like blue eyes, it just happens to offset it just a little bit. There we are. This is violet that I picked up. And just to show you the versatility, and the reason why I love using this as a color to add depth, I'm going to go from the balloons, giving it some depth there. Then I'm going to actually move in and use my violet to shade my light brown. It's got a nice warming effect, and I'm also going to use it to shade in the pink, give that some depth as well. But you can see by adding this violet in here, it just gives it a nice, deep, rich look. Again, you can't be heavy-handed. I mean, my approach is very light. Again, you've got to be real delicate with it. I'm coming here on the bottom. But you can see now how much deeper that looks, how much more depth you've created just by adding that little bit of color on the bottom. Again, in the pink here in the foot, we're going to give it a drop shadow here coming down. More over here on this side. And we're going to kind of distinguish that arm from the rest of the stomach there. But I mean, what a versatile color this is. I mean, I just love the way that it interacts well with just about every color in my palette. And then we're going to move down here in the lettering. In the violet, I'm use a little bit more of a stroke, a little bit more line work here. I'm going to go top and bottom, and I'm also going to add a quick drop shadow. As you can see, we finished out our design with some highlighting. We went in with the balloons and gave a real sharp hot spot there on the top and just a little bit of an edging underneath. We worked our way down into the bear, adding a nice solid highlight in the nose and in the eyes. Kind of really pops that area out. I didn't touch any of the fur because I want to keep that fuzzy looking. I don't want to add it and make it kind of look like a night light, so we just leave that alone. Then we move down here and we've got some highlighting in the lettering, remembering to keep that very crisp. And just very light in terms of the highlighting on it. You don't want to overdo that. Once again, the second part of this Grandma and Grandpa's game, this is a great addition. You've got to have both of them up just to offer that variety. Again, I sell this one for $25, and it does just a super job for me. Well, that concludes the second part of our two-part series of Kent Lind's Top 25 Designs. I really feel that any number of these designs put up in your shop is going to enhance your business 100-fold. You're going to get a lot of bang for your buck out of this series. You're really going to make your money back within the first few hours of having these designs up in your shop. If you'd like some more information, you can contact Airbrush Action or get them online at airbrushAction.com, or you can check out their magazine. I've got a column in here that we do every issue called T-Shirt Tactics, and I try to put in as much information as I can in every issue. Thanks for joining me today, and keep on brushing. We'll see you next time.